What?
Now we are live.
Now we're live. What's up, everyone? Happy Thursday, Friday. If you guys could hear us before, sorry, we're having some technical difficulties. But today's cast, we want to do something to address some of the concerns. So this is a little bit more serious conversation. And as you can see by the title and description, we're going to talk about the all-important life source. And this is something that Sever and I talked about last week, and we've talked about before, and other reefers have talked a little bit about it. But over the coming week or so, that there's been some comments brought up about it. What's inside of it? Does it cause any damage to my aquarium? So obviously, quality control is something very important to Aquaforest. And so Sever and I want to talk a little bit today about what it is, how it's collected, how it should be used, and some of the specifics about what's actually inside of it. So Sever, maybe we can just help kick it off by telling us a little bit about the origin of the product, how it's collected, and then we'll go from there into actually what's inside of it.
Hello, everyone. Great to see, great to talk to you, like always, Aaron, and great to see you all, guys. So as Aaron said, we would like to address some concerns that people have about the Aquaforest Life Source. So the Aquaforest Life Source, it's a natural mat that is collected from the pristine water of Fiji, and I was visiting even this place where it was collected a few years ago. And so I know that it's a very pristine place. But as we discussed, it's an absolutely natural product. So it could contain everything that is in nature, and the collection it's very simple in the old school way. It's from the 10-15 meters deep. The mud is collected in the special island, very far away from the main Fiji island, and just. There's a diver who just dig with some bucket and just put it in the boat, and that takes few days to pass through this, and so it's packed in the special sealed big buckets, and it's sent to us to our company to Europe, and then it's repacked, and it's Aaron, could you please help me with the name of how the process, how we
it's sieved. It's put through a sieve.
It's sieved. Yes, yeah, it's sieved, because in the past, before we did it, like a few years ago, we didn't make it, but we sieved it now because we found out that we can find some small rocks inside, a small, I don't know, some small natural, and even in the past we have some small part of plastic even, which was also very very how to say, it was we were surprised that even the place like that we can find some part of plastics, but this plastic as they are there in the ocean. But for now, when we made this process, so even if it's happened, so it was easy to filter it, but we cannot filter it more or just dissolve it and take other particles, because we will lose the essential what is in this product, and the essential it's a bacteria, biodiversity, all the what is inside, which was used in the years, and even we tried for years before in our coral farm, in our tanks, and we tested on ICP, and so that's why we are very confident that this product is very beneficial for our tank. And we observe that this mat, when it's added to the tank, helps to really grow the biology. We saw tremendous growth of copper pods. The all bacterial process are generally, tanks are more stable. We see how corals react on when we dose them. They are open the polyps, so they feel that it's something good on it, and the main concern that we saw from people that this situation happened in the past also. We saw it before, that somebody used a magnet and just mix the Fiji mat, and it was and some of the particles of metallic or magnetic particles are attached to the magnet. This magnetic particles this is natural basalt, which is very common and is there for years and millions of years on the reef places. Well, Aaron, yes, you can just
so let's. I just want to, before getting into exactly what it is, I just want to just restate again how it's collected. So not on the main island of Fiji, of Suva, but another outer island, and the mud is collected, and it's collected offshore at approximately 30 to 45 feet down, and a diver goes down there in a wetsuit, air tank, makes a hole, in essence, digs up a bunch of the sand, puts it into buckets, brings it up, it's sealed, and then sent over. So again, I'm just going to go through the different steps on this, because I know as people are either watching this now or watching this later, just to make sure we repeat things a few times, just to make it clear. So the water is naturally collected, it's then packaged and then sent over. And then once it's in the lab, a couple things are done. So the first is it's put through a sieve to remove any of the large shells, stones, rocks, frags, anything that is a large enough particulate size. And then an ICP test is done to it, just to understand of that batch, what is the parameters inside of it. And then from there, it's then packaged with some of the water that's in it naturally to keep the biological bacteria alive into the bags that we now get it in. So these guys here.
But even the water, it's before it's sent, we don't transport the water, because the mud itself, it's very humid. There's a lot of water on it, so there's no like water. If you will not see it, the water on the surface of the mud, but generally water itself, because that's conservate all the bacteria, because it's salt water, so it could be alive for years inside this this mud. And yes, but generally we don't process this mud. It is as it is. We just sieve it, just as we said, and the only thing that we do, we just test certain batches when we arrive. But generally, it's coming in few batches. So one batch it's collected, and then we dissolve in the water, and we look what is inside. I mean, what kind of chemical parameters. What kind of elements you will find in this mud, and we never found any of harmful any harmful elements in this mud. Usually there are some natural minerals that they are there, and when you add it to the tank of course with the biological load as well.
So let's talk a little bit about what's in it, and I won't call out any specific reefers who've been talking about it, but you know who you are, and we've been in contact and talking with you and sharing some information. So I appreciate your patience on that. But looking specifically at what it is, so let's take a step back and look at where in the world Fiji is. Like, obviously, most of us know it's in the Pacific. It's not necessarily on the ring of fire that has all the volcanic activity. However, we know that over the course of time that the volcanic islands help to create a lot of Polynesia, Micronesia, and Melanesia. And so as a result of a lot of that volcanic activity and the calcium bicarbonate coral shells, that there's a good mixture. So on Fiji, this is the case where we're seeing, where this is collected, that the sand and underneath the sand has a lot of mineral matter in there. And so what is this mineral matter? So looking at one of the pictures that was shared under a microscope, it kind of prompted us to really take a deeper look into the chemical composition of what's inside of the mud. And it shouldn't be much of a surprise that there was some interesting things in there, but what was that interesting thing? And for us, that was the understanding that it's basalt, igneous basalt. Also known as a form of lava. And over the course of millennia of moving across the ocean, it's gotten smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, and becomes a dense sediment that's on the sand or underneath the sand to form this mud. And so there's a chance that this igneous basalt can be magnetic. Right? It doesn't mean that it is. It doesn't mean that all of it is the same level of magnetism. But over time, as the Earth's polarity changes, there is a magnetic field that could happen on some of this basalt. And so when the folks who did some of these tests and put the magnet next to it and raised the lower, what they were indeed pulling up was basalt that had a magnetic charge to it, a negative or positive, whatever magnet they were using. And that's what was appearing. So, and we saw that within the ICP test, the chemical presence of basalt. And so when, some of the questions were, well, is it iron? Is it this? Is it that? The simple answer is it's from basalt, and the magnetized basalt allowed the connection there, similar to what iron would do, but in this case, it's not an iron ore. It's a basalt that has a electromagnetic charge to it. And I just wanted to bring that up because as we talk about, or some of the concerns is like, is it a heavy metal? Is it a pollutant? Basalt is by its nature not a pollutant, and in fact, due to its surface area, it's very porous. It kind of looks like the surface of the moon, all these divots into it. It allows for that biological diversity that Sever was talking about, and it's because of that that we see that the success of this product is, being able to harbor many of these things. It's just unfortunate, as it's naturally occurring, that it also could have this charge. So, is it toxic to our tanks? No, basalt is not toxic to our tanks, to the oceans. It is a naturally occurring product. And in fact, we could see some online retailers use the black sand or black gravel, black volcano bits in their reef tanks, in their freshwater tanks. It is something that people do use. And it's the exact same thing. If you're using this deep colored sand, black sand, if you've been to a black sand beach, it's basalt. So, and you might see like different particulates in that. That's exactly what it is. So,
and I will just tell you a very funny story, because we have also frag rocks, which is also black colored, and we use the basalt as a certain not the colorant, but it's a part of this black rocks. The black rocks and the same and the frag rocks. And somebody also just glue it, not glue it, but attach it to the magnet, and he was very inquisitive. What is that? Because it's magnetic. So it is, because almost all the sand, something they have it basalt on it. So there's nothing to worry about, and it's just a part of the nature.
Yeah.
And it's not a pollutant. It's not something that will kill your coral, but it's not probably your concern.
Exactly. So one of the other concerns that was brought up is it going to damage my pump? And so again, we are not the scientists or experts in mineralogy, but upon looking on the internet to see what is the density, the hardness of basalt, there's a scale that exists, and you can see like a diamond is a 10, and it goes from 0 to 10. And one of the things that we noticed when looking at this igneous basalt, that it's between a 4 and a 6. And so that's meaning that it's like in the middle of the road. And when we looked at different types of magnets that are used in the aquarium, they were well above that. They were a 7, 8, 9. And so what that tells us is if any of that igneous basalt was to come in contact with one of the magnets, it's just going to take that granule and make it even smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller if it goes through the water column. That doesn't mean that it's going to cause damage to your pump, to your impeller, to your system overall. It just means that particle size, like if it was a grain of sand, is just going to become smaller and smaller. And so again, we wanted to address this because it was a concern that a few folks had brought up, and wanted to do our due diligence to see what it is and what's causing that or could cause that.
Yeah, and additionally, I'm a kind of witness because we tested this product for probably like 8-9 years. I don't know, probably now. And in my tank, just there, I use it for I think like 7 years already, and I have 7 years the same pumps for skimmer, for return pumps, and I have a very solid history of ICP. Because I do probably from 7 years every week a test kit. So at the test the ICP, I never had any elevation of metal, never heavy metal that is harmful, never. Just I even just sent yesterday my ICP test, and the pumps are running very well after 7 years. Of course, pumps and the propeller are something to be cleaned. We forgot about this. But even with that, even if you don't clean it, probably this basalt will not scratch this because it's not so hard to do that. But anyway, Probably, it's not just my tank, because I will be one of the example. But before, we tested in our different tanks in the company, and many customers use it, and I never heard about that something, but we sell it. We know thousands of people that use these products, and never heard that was some cause of the heavy metals, or the magnet was damaged. And there are some concern, for example, what happened if you will be attached to the magnet, that you will also clean the glass. And I honestly, I have it it's just behind I have a magnet there, and it's always there, the same one that I use for years and years. I never scratch it with but of course, it's happened that I scratch it, but definitely not with that. It was with the grain of sand, maybe. But the particles are so thin that are probably more, if they will do it, it will be more polished, and not scratch.
Right.
And what else? And of course, if you will use the magnet and concentrate in one place, they will attach from the whole everything that is inside. Whoa, I have a it's my son who came with his dog. But anyway,
right. So
yeah.
in a high concentration in a container, like some of the videos that were done on social media, it's naturally going to just gravitate towards that one side because of the concentration in there. And so I guess it brings up a dosage rate. So on the packaging, I'm just going to read it. It says dosage for every 10 ml per 100 or 27 gallons of water. So I'm just as guilty, and I'm sure others are as well, of not necessarily using the scooper to the right ratio. And so that's a good reminder to me to follow the right ratio when applying it into the tank, is just to make sure that we are abiding by the instructions to minimize some of the chances of any of this, causing any of this abundance of particulates into the tank. So be mindful of.
But Aaron, I will just be very, very straightforward. I use it like one package at a time. I put it somewhere in the sump. I never follow the instruction, honestly. I said that, okay, we recommend to do it, of course, but to say that my pumps are there. They are still functionized there, and they have no scratch on the propeller, and just I don't have any metals in my tanks. There's I understand this concern, because we just have something in our mind, that something that is magnetic, that is mean that it will be harmful for the tank, or I don't know, for pumps, or for the generally, it scares us.
Yeah.
But as you said, sometimes something that is not clear, they have not clarity. It doesn't mean it will be good. It will be not good for your tank, or something that will be super clear, it will be harmful for your tank. So that's why we make this experience for years and years and years, really for years, and some beta testers after in our tanks, and just use it just to prevent this kind of situation.
So I appreciate your honesty there. Definitely appreciate it. So, in the past, during our discussion last week about cycling, we talked about two different methods. One is to just pour it in to the tank itself and let the tank go cloudy and then clear up by the morning. The second was one that I was talking about, where I put it into my sump in a low flow area and allow the bacteria and the media to come bubbling up through that. So for folks who have refugiums, and are uncomfortable with the idea of pouring it into the tank, by all means, feel free to add it to your refugium. If you have a low flow space in your sump, feel free to add it in a container to your sump as well, and allow the beneficial bacteria to help move through the system. And then you won't get the cloudiness from just dumping it into the tank. So again, thinking of other ways that you could use the product in its forms to get the beneficial both micro and flora fauna into your tank. So obviously wanted to share that with the community there. And for those of you who are interested in seeing some of those ICP results, by all means, leave your either reach out to the Aquaforest team, and we can share them with you directly, or leave your comments and questions down below, and the team will be sure to address them. So I want to pause for a moment. We've been talking about this for about 17 minutes. I just want to see if there's any comments in the questions that the team has, or the folks who are watching, that we can specifically address on that. Have we adequately explored this and addressed it to people's concerns? And if you do have ongoing questions, what are some of these questions? Why we have Sever here that we can ask him directly.
Yes.
So I know it's going to take a minute. So one of the questions in here, how does cold weather transportation affect the biome inside? So that's a great question, and I don't know if there's a certain seasonality towards it being collected, but I think we know generally that bacteria is pretty resilient as the dominant species on the planet. Some of it obviously may not make it, but I can imagine that a good portion of that would. And unless that the water was tested, using a biological means upon collection and then receiving, we would have no way of knowing what types of bacteria would live and die, by jumping on a plane or going by sea. And maybe Sever, you can explain that one.
Well, I have we made an experience that we left just the mud to dry for almost 2 years, as I remember. And when we use it, it was still have a lot of bacteria inside after few days even. And so the nature is really resilient, as you said, and we didn't observe that it's weakener. I honestly I'm not I cannot answer 100% sure that is how many bacteria live and how many bacteria does not live, but this product is still good to use it. That's our observation.
And could you clarify whether the mud is air freighted or is it done on a container on a ship?
In the container.
In a container on a ship. So
yes. That mud will be probably like 4 times or 5 times more expensive if we'll do it this way.
Yeah, perfect. But again, just addressing the question on that. So
yes.
It's not going up, 35,000 feet, which may impact colder weather. It's going to go from Fiji around the world.
Yes, on the container.
Yeah,
on the container. Yes. But it's not that's how we observe. It's not the live rock that will, everything will die in the rock, but not everything. But it's not even in the live rock. It will not die. Everything will be, the life will be there, but there will be some process in the rock. There is some process that something will die and will add it, and you have some spike of phosphate and nitrates. But here it's really well conserved in this substance of mud, all the biology.
Great. Thank you for that. So I don't see any other questions on Facebook or YouTube specifically asking on that. But again, if you guys do have questions or you have concerns about it, by all means, feel free to reach out and put your comments below. Reach out to the Aquaforest team directly, and they will do their best to make sure that you can get the answers that you need. And again, when this claim was first brought up in the concerns, we've been working with that reefer to make sure that we can share with him the ICP results.
Yeah, but because this is the concern, that we never had any case that somebody just bring out that have a problem with the propeller or the pumps itself. Yeah. It just I can imagine why you have these concerns, but there's no real situation that something like that happened in the past or something like that. And we even during these 2 days we ask our reefer, our beta testers, or in our company, we check the propellers that we use in the place where we use it for years, and they are good. There's nothing. They are still good. The ICPs are still good. So we didn't really observe any kind of this kind of effect that you said. But we did that in the past. And honestly, probably we didn't make another test of how it's dissolved or how to attach for I don't know, maybe 2 years. So that's why we tried. Okay, so we did it in the beginning, but now let's try the effect in our propeller that we use for years, and if there are some damage or some scratches or some anything. But anyway, even with that, in our case. But most important thing it's that we forget, we need to clean the pump, because I will not worry too much about this very thin particles of basalt, but I will more for snails, for I don't know, for some other harder materials, and that's why we need to clean it, and it's very important to just do it regularly.
And there's another question on here, Wonderwater. Thank you for both your questions, asking whether you'll find other types of bad bacteria like cyano or dinos. Honestly, it's entirely possible. They are naturally occurring in the ocean. So it is entirely possible to get all types of bacteria, good and bad, and cyano and dinos in there as well. So to say
Technically,
that,
it's possible,
right.
but on the most, I never observe any reaction like that, because usually when we start a tank in our places or anything, we use the mud to boost the biology, and what happened that this process of maturation very smooth. We don't have the ugly faces. If it's there, it's very mild, and we didn't observe like a dino flagus kind of activities. It's that could happen with the other source like a rife rock, because it's happened, but we didn't observe that, honestly.
Yeah, I see his further comment on here that it's a new tank. So your tank is going through new tank syndrome, which is a natural
Yes.
process that's going to happen. If some of you saw the video that Sam Parker of Parker's Reef made during his 7-month tank update, he had the dinos as well. And he did use, based on a conversation he and I had, the Life Source, and that did help to significantly reduce them.
Yes, that's
So
true.
it will help to reduce them, but again, every new tank or most new tanks go through some type of ugly stage. I'm sorry that you're going through that, but it'll work its way through, and you'll find that the Life Source will help to shorten that up as well, and your new rock will over time become more mature.
Yes, and I remember we just Aaron just shared with me with some question about one of the reefer asked us if it's possible that that after adding life source he has a grow the aptasia grow it in his tank. And of course it's I never heard about this kind of situation, but like Aaron said, technically it's possible, because it's a natural, maybe, I don't know what we can find. Everything that is nature you can find there, and just but I probably it came with some coral or some rock or some other stuff that you can find, but I doubt that it's in the mud. But yeah, but technically yes, it's possible, because it's a totally natural process. We don't treat them with the heat. We don't treat we don't generally work with the mud, because that will definitely will kill everything that we want to, the benefits that there is there.
Yeah, and so there's a couple questions on here. So first, I just want to address Michael, your comment about how often it should be replaced. And this depends on how you're going to use it. If you're going to be pouring it into the tank, obviously you go through the bag as is. If you're going to be putting it into the sump, it will naturally last quite a long time. How long should you replace it? Me personally, I replaced mine every 6 months. I would have it, and then I'd replace it and then mix it up. So, but to each their own. I don't think there's any right or wrong way to use the product, but that's just how I used it.
Yeah, and in my case, I usually I put it in the place where it is high flow, but I also mix it in the tank. But usually when I like to have it, I say that I dump all the packages in one place, so I put it in the sump where the water flow in the high rate of flow. So usually it's not least so long. It's like takes few weeks, maybe 2 weeks, and it's disappeared. It's dissolved totally.
Yeah, and so the second question in here is, Jay, I hope we've done you some justice looking in this. You should see more information in your inbox to be able to look through some of the specifics, and we can talk about that as well. But the comment that you left on here is that, and I'm just going to quote you, is I actually had multiple reefers reach out saying that and state that it has damaged their pumps. Could be hearsay, or that the pumps they're using have ceramic magnets that are on a lower scale of magnetivity. So that's entirely possible that, depending on the magnet's quality, that, if it's less than, a 4 to 6 range of the basalt, it's entirely possible. But we saw looking at if it's a higher grade magnet and the quality brands that we use in the industry, they're all higher than that. So the basalt will break down even finer. But again, we can't speak for all the products of all the brands of pumps and impellers that are out on the market. It's actually really hard information to even find. But the stuff that we were able to find, we did see that the quality brands, such as the Tunzi that you're using, did have a much higher density.
and still it's a very thin how to say thin structure of this material. It's not really something that it's like a grains, like grains of sand or something like that. It's so I don't know. I've never experienced this kind of situation.
Yeah, and another of the question that is on here is that they see that Life Source has a lot of rust in it, and so obviously, if you have rust in yours, let's see what the bag looks like inside, the lot number, etc. And we can share with you the ICP results for it. Again,
no, but there is iron inside. There is, because iron. It's also in the nature, and there is in the mud. You will find iron. You will find iron in the water. You will find iron everywhere. So it could be the trace of iron. But this iron, it's totally harmful for your tanks for sure as well. Because as we discussed before with Aaron, we also have a laboratory. We have a service that we make a water test, ICP test for our reefer, and just 99% of the tanks have a low level of iron, which is so that's why I even in my tank just like a 2 months I stopped to those extra iron. And when I just found out that my iron and of course I make a water change every week, and I add the Component Pro, which have also iron in it, but this element is so fast absorbed by corals, by fish, by corals, and by life that we have in the tank. So now I have a very, very low iron level, so I would need to start to add it again. So that's why iron it's everywhere, and in the water as well. And iron, it doesn't mean it's iron that we imagine something very solid. It's just the element that it's very, very important for corals to have it.
Yeah, and George is asking, he's got a couple questions here. He was saying that he's used a couple bags and didn't have any issue. When he started using his fourth bag, that he noticed that there was some dust that was on the gyre magnet. So he stopped using it. And so I, in my previous tank, I had the gyres on there and using it. And I observed there was a biofilm that was on the magnet, but it wasn't anything that was gritty. It was just kind of like almost like a slime, and it had slight texture to it. But I didn't notice that it did any particular damage, and I had the FX 330s on mine. So that was, again, just my personal case using that. And your second question on here is, can you overdose it? And so I'll just speak from my experience, Sever, and anyone else who's used it, they can do the same. I don't think it's possible to overdose into the tank if either pouring it in or leaving it into the sump. Your corals are going to naturally have a benefit from that. Having said that, if you put so much in there at a time where it impacts your dissolved oxygen or your ORP, then you might see some negative effects on the fish, where it'd be difficult for them to breathe because all of that stuff's going to be going into their gills. And so in that, if you're going to be pouring into your tank, either doing it later in the day or when the lights are off, and when the fish are going to sleep, it'll be a much easier, less stress on the fish to do so. But in my experience, I don't know if it's possible to overdose the use of the product. But Sever, what's your experience?
Generally, there are some trace elements, and they are you have some, let's say, some aluminium, you have some metals, you have an even very low amount of titanium, but it's in the acceptable level if you do it. But generally, if you really overdose it, 1:1 to water, probably it could it could rise these levels of these elements. But generally, we didn't. It's better not to do it. But if you feel comfortable, you can do it. I do it, and because I have a lot of corals, and I use it for years, and I never had any experience to to that is, I didn't saw in the ICP, because as I said, I do sometimes twice a week. I said even one by week, but always. And I never saw any augmentation of harmful elements in the tank.
Yeah, and George, I was dosing it in the tank 2 times a week, and then I had the container from the old plastic ones in the sump. So that was my use case there.
Yes.
I'm just going to scroll up.
But it's always as we discussed in the beginning. It's a natural product, and there is always, not technically, but it's possible that you will find something that is in the nature, and it could be not good, but generally we do everything that we can to prevent it. We make a test and we observe if there are any contaminants that could be harmful, and we never observe it. That's why we took it from the places where it's totally natural. It's totally natural. There's no any chemical process involved. There's just packing or repacking. It's everybody that we found a benefit. But no, we have such a, not maybe the same, but very there are some for years, another mat in the market, years and years, and we use it, and it was very beneficial. But this one, it's probably from different place, and so they could have something else, but it's everybody's choice. You have a lot of beneficial things, but there's that technically you will find apthesia inside, but I'm doubt, but it's possible. It's from the ocean.
Yeah, so we've got a lot of new folks that have joined in the last several minutes. So just want to reiterate what that substance was that were in some of the videos that were posted. And so it is a igneous basalt. And so igneous basalt is a form of lava. It's a small granule size of black lava that has basically covers the floor of the Pacific Ocean, as a lot of the Pacific is part of the Ring of Fire, a lot of volcanoes, etc. And so the base of the ocean has a lot of this igneous basalt in it. And so from time to time, igneous basalt will have a magnetic charge to it. So therefore, a magnet will attract to it. But the intensity of that varies depending on place, depends on the flow of the water at the time. So it doesn't mean that all igneous basalt is magnetic. It varies considerably. So again, for those of you who joined a little bit later, just wanted to reiterate what it is, that it is not a heavy metal. It is not even a metal, but it is a form of igneous rock. Yes. And so another couple of questions just that have come up is George was saying that he's used it for 7 years, or Severus said he was using it for 7 years. And did you notice any buildup in your sand of the sand, any buildup of the mud in the sand?
I have honestly, I have the same sand. It's remind me that with all the schools that I took, I should replace this sand finally. And it's like 7 years in my time. It's still very white. I don't see anything, but I can just show you. But it's late and it's blue, so probably you will not notice. But this sand have 7 years old, and I never change it. So as you see, I didn't clean the glass. But I I steer it time to time, and just they have some kind of natural stuff on it, but I didn't saw really something that is solid or something like that. Yeah. But it's remind me that I should replace it, because probably it's already used, if I can say like that.
And another question that came up, Sharbuckle's Reef is asking if we could explain the metal buildup. I'm just going to quote you. Can you please explain people experiencing metal buildup on their power heads after using Life Source? So I think we kind of addressed that a moment ago, that Life Source itself, the material in there is not a metal, but it's a basalt that has a metallic conductivity to a magnet. What that could be that's attaching to it, it could be the little pieces of the basalt, the micro grain size, or as Sever had said before, that it is a naturally occurring product. It may have other things in it that is at the micro or the nano level, but I think it'd be difficult to say that the Life Source was a direct reason of this quote unquote metal buildup on a power head. So I hope that addresses your question on that. If not, by all means, please let us know. Okay, and I don't necessarily see any other specific questions on here. But Jay, if you're watching, I do hope that this is helping address some of the specific comments that you've brought up, and as well other reefers of things that you've seen and used this along the way.
But for these people who are really concerned about it, there's as Aaron said, that he can use it not just dissolving and dump it in the water column. Just use it as a to have to still have this beneficial effect of this product. You can just put it as a refugium, or in the place where you have a flow, and it will slowly dissolve. Probably even these small particles, they could be skimmed by skimmer, and it's it could be just like, but it's very thin. It's like a this grain of sand. It's like probably much bigger, and it's yeah, and so
yes. So just going back to the grain of sand. So if anyone's been to a black sand beach, what they're seeing there is basalt that has been ground down to a fine sand. So that in essence is that same type of material if you've been to a black sand beach.
Yeah, and it's, as Aaron said, we said that before, but for people who just join it, this material, it's less harder than the magnetic propellers, but the magnet that we use in our tank. So they are not really, they're not reacting with the magnets. That the most of the magnet that they from the brand, that they really take care of quality. Because if you have if let's say there are some brands that they have a lower, it's not, the magnet is not hard, so probably the propeller will without that, we will dissolve it, or he will just leach something in the water. Because I heard that in this situation, it's not just because somebody used the Aquaforest, the mad from Fiji, but because they just dissolve it on the fraction, and it's release some tungsten or some other elements from the water without anything, because this is probably not the right product, and they use the cheap materials, and it's and it could happen something like that. But I will not tie that to this kind of product, because you will have the sand that is flowing in the water. You have some some fish just dig in the sand, and this all that's turning in the water. It could be attached also for the pumps. So just
Exactly. So again, I hope that this has helped to address some of the questions and concerns about the use of Life Source. We know if people have other issues or questions, or they would like to see the ICP results, by all means, feel free to leave the comment below. You can reach out to Sever or the team at Aquaforest, and they'll be able to share more information with you. But again, we wanted to get onto this as quickly as possible this week, when some of these things were happening, and just to be open and honest and transparent with you. So Sever, I appreciate you taking the time to share this with us. And for those of you who asked your questions, thank you for taking the time to ask. And I hope that we've done our best to address some of your questions, your comments, concerns, and that you believe that we're doing the best as Aquaforest to represent the product in the market.
And still, I really believe that it's a great product. So I will use it anyway, and without any doubt, because I use it for 7 years with the success and with any issue that here I can say.
Yeah, and George, your last quick question on the salt. So our upcoming Tank Talk, we're actually going to be talking about the salts in a little bit more detail. So I'll save that question for you, and we'll be sure to address it on the next one. So for now, guys, thank you for taking the time to join us. Sever, as always, a pleasure. Once again, happy reefing.
Thank you, Aaron. Happy reefing. Thank you, Aaron, for the call.